Hi everyone, it's Taylor. Welcome back to my channel. I'm an American expat living in Malaysia and I like to share my life and travels with you. Well, as you all know, there is just an app for everything, isn't there? But today, I'm going to talk to you about what I think are some of the essential apps to have on your phone in Malaysia. Sound interesting? Stay tuned. Well, sometimes I think there are just too many apps out there, as I'm sure you'll agree. Gosh, every store, everything has an app. And I don't always want them. I want to keep the apps on my phone to a minimum and just have the ones I really need. So today, I'm going to tell you about the apps that I use in Malaysia most often. I've divided it into several categories: banking, transportation, utilities, leisure, travel, and shopping. So let's get started with banking. Oh gosh, you can just do all your banking online now. It's really easy. Now what I have done is before I moved to Malaysia, I opened an HSBC account in the United States and then opened one here too. So I have those two apps for HSBC in the US and here in Malaysia, and it makes it super simple for me to transfer money from the US to Malaysia. I also have a Truist Bank account in the US too. Boy, that bank has had so many different names over the years, and I still have my same account there. But that's where my money gets deposited from Social Security, and then I move it over to HSBC and transfer it here to Malaysia. So that's pretty simple. And because I have a Premier account at HSBC, there's no charge for the wire transfer. And I know sometimes that you have to have a huge amount of money to have a Premier account and pay no fees. But with HSBC, if you have a Premier account in any country, then that counts for all the countries. For instance, in Malaysia, you can get a Premier account with HSBC with only a little bit more money in the bank than what is required for your fixed deposit for MM2H, or at least my MM2H. And it's totally different now. So the US has a way higher threshold to have a Premier account, way more money. But as long as you have it in one country, it's good for every country, which is great. So I have a debit card from HSBC here in Malaysia, and I use that for most purchases. It's really easy. I hardly ever use cash anymore. And then I have a credit card that's in the US, but I can use it here too. Now, there's a couple other apps that actually are both in banking and in transport. And that would be the Touch and Go, which is something you use to pay tolls and things like that, but you can also use it for purchases. And then there's the Grab app, which is a Malaysian's version of Uber. And you can use that for buying things too, and to have food delivered to your house. So that's great. Now the Touch and Go card is linked also to the Touch and Go e-wallet. And that way you can pay with that too. And if you have the Touch and Go e-wallet, you can top up your card without having to go and pay cash at the petrol station or wherever you top it up. Now that I have a car, I'm not using Grab very much anymore, but I am using the Touch and Go a lot for tolls. Now tolls, let me just go into this briefly, but tolls, now some toll stations on the highway, you can use a Visa and you don't have to use your Touch and Go, but you can't do it everywhere. So you really got to have a Touch and Go too. And I usually just use that. Living in Kuala Lumpur as I do, an essential app that I have is Waze, which gives you directions on how to get places. I find it just unbelievably helpful because KL is a very confusing city. I don't think if I lived here to be 100, I would ever learn the city very well. So it's an essential app. And I think it works better than some of the other GPS coordinates. Certainly better than the one that came with my car. I have had a huge problem getting used to it though, because I never used GPS in the US. Because I lived in Washington, D.C. for 40 years, and I knew my way around. I didn't need to use GPS. So it's been a bit of a learning curve for me to try to get used to it. I am learning slowly but surely. I went to dinner with some viewers recently who lived in Bangsar, and I used it to go to their house. And I made no mistakes getting there. And I only made one wrong turn going home. But it doesn't really matter if you make a wrong turn. It adjusts to the turn you've made, and you'll get home eventually anyway. And I did. Now I'll talk about utilities a little bit. Each utility has their own app too. Now, I don't use them all because honestly I just pay through my bank to most of them. But the electric company, T&B, I use that because I can keep an eye on how my electric is for the month, whether I'm using the aircon too much or what. But when I pay the bill, I use what they call JomPay, which is part of your banking app. And you just set that up once for each company, and then it's really simple every month to pay your bills. You can pay through the apps, but I prefer to do it with JomPay. I also have the app for Maxis, which is my phone carrier. And I think it's the largest one in Malaysia. It's certainly very, very popular. I only recently got the Maxis app, and I realized that I was really paying too much for my phone bill. I think it was like 130 ringgit a month. I think it was 129 ringgit a month, or 30-something dollars. And I realized I didn't need that kind of coverage. I stay home most of the time, as you know, so I'm using the Wi-Fi here at home, which I pay for separately. I just dropped my phone bill down to a much cheaper plan and realized that over the 10 years I've been here, I paid an extra 5,000 ringgit to Maxis that I really didn't need to. It adds up over time. Now I think it's about 70 ringgit, which is much better. Now I'll talk a little bit about travel apps. For hotels and flights and things like that, I pretty much use Expedia mostly. And that's because I have found that since I use Expedia, it doesn't trigger any kind of fraud alert when I'm using it to buy plane tickets and stuff like that with my bank. So that's a good thing. And that's basically why I use it mostly. But I also use Booking.com too. That's really handy here in Southeast Asia. I use that mostly for hotels. Also, when I went to Paris recently, I used AirAllo. I think that's how you say it. But anyway, it's an eSIM. And that was seamless. I set that up before I went to Paris, and as soon as I touched down, my phone was working. Now, I tried it when I was in Thailand recently too, and it didn't work. But they gave me a refund when I got back. But anyway, eSIM is the way to go, I think, when you're traveling. Also, I have a VPN, and I think that comes in handy too. I use Surfshark, and I've been happy with that, and it's pretty affordable too. The best thing about Surfshark is that you can change your location to anywhere in the world, and that's really helpful for Netflix, which I'm going to talk about in my leisure section next. If you're looking for something that's supposed to be on Netflix and it doesn't show up, try it in another country and it might be there. It's really nice. Now, I wondered how that was going to work, if I was going to have to make a lot of adjustments, and you don't. Once you have your VPN set for like the UK or something, and you sign on to Netflix, it's going to show you the UK Netflix. So that's been super helpful. I've really enjoyed having that. As I've said before, I pretty much only use Netflix and YouTube for my entertainment, for things I watch on TV. I do miss some of the network television from the US, but I've gotten used to just using Netflix and YouTube. I can catch up on the news on YouTube too. Now, I've talked about shopping before. Lazada is my favorite online shopping here in Malaysia. I like it because it makes you do an extra step when you're paying, and that just feels more secure to me. Now, I still use Shopee too, but I just don't feel as comfortable with that, although I never really have had a problem with Shopee. I've just gotten used to using Lazada mostly. And of course, I have apps for several stores. The pet food store, it gives me a discount for Earl Grey's food. I have one for the Fat Man shop I go to. That gives me points too. But honestly, like I said before, I just don't want to have an app for everything, so I keep those to a minimum. It's hard to believe that apps are so much a part of our lives these days, but it's true, and you better get used to using them. That's what I think. So I hope you got something out of today's video. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe, and check the notification bell too. That way you won't miss any of my future content. Also, as you know, I have Buy Me a Coffee, and it's about 50% of my YouTube earnings, so I really appreciate it. And as I've mentioned before, I don't do product endorsements or sponsorships anymore because I think you all see enough ads without me having to add another ad in the middle of my video. I hope you appreciate that. But that's all I have for today, everybody. I think I'm going to do a road trip again for my next video. I'm not sure where I'm going, but it might be Port Dixon. I've never been there. So you can look forward to that. But thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you have a great week, and talk to you later. Bye.